Emma, what you got?
I was gonna say Belle from Beauty and the Beast.
Oh, why?
She loves to read.
Okay.
It's very good.
Do you speak French?
I wish.
Okay.
I can say
Well,
bonjour.
yeah.
I say I'm a mix of Olivia Pope from Scandal
Ooh.
and Jack from Will and Grace.
Just Jack.
Just Jack. If you know me well, you know the just Jack. But no, I'm a fixer, so like I got it done. It's handled.
Yeah.
Like,
I love Sean Hayes a whole lot, so I love that. Anyone else want to share? Yeah.
I feel like Don Quixote sometimes, like attacking the windmill, you know. Futile effort.
I think a lot about your personalities. Anyone
Do you
else
have any
want to share?
coworkers here when they say that?
yeah.
Anyone else? Willing to bite the bullet?
I'll go with
Steven?
Iron Man, and she's my
Pepper?
pepper over there.
I mean, you just have to
She's a huge in line.
I mean, if someone compared me to Gwyneth Paltrow, I would just take it. So, thanks for sharing, y'all. It's always really fun to just get your answers. So in case you didn't know where you were, you are Creative Mornings. If you're not already following us on social, please give us a follow. This is how you find out what we're doing next, where we're going to be, who our next speakers are going to be. So appreciate y'all following us there. And also thank you to our local sponsors, Stephen and Lauren in the back from Co-Partners Well. So they sponsored our breakfast this morning from Beatbox, who happens to be our speakers this morning as well.
Thank you very much.
So for those of you who don't
Yeah,
know,
pumpkin bread.
Creative Mornings is always free. We really rely on local partners to donate breakfast or street donates the space to us really generously every month. So we don't make any money on this event. It's purely just to give something back to the creative people in our community. So if you are interested in being a sponsor, if you know someone who would be interested, we'd love to know about that just to keep our chapter going and keep you all fueled on Friday mornings. So we also have a couple of global sponsors. So there are 260 plus chapters all over the globe for Creative Mornings, and MailChimp is our main sponsor. So they put together like the graphics, the website, like all of the technical aspects that we have for marketing. MailChimp is our sponsor for that. I'm not really sure what this slide is for, guys, so I'm just gonna. Just being honest.
Yeah, right.
It was part of the MailChimp slides, and I don't have my notes in front of me, and I forgot what it's for. So just, take it in. As I mentioned, we've got over 200 chapters all over the world throughout 67 countries. You can see the numbers here. Just there are thousands and thousands of people all over the globe who are meeting for Creative Mornings at least one Friday a month. So it's always on a Friday. You can pick which Friday you want to do. It's always a Friday morning. I do believe Kansas City meets on the same morning that we do. So those folks in KC are also meeting this morning. It just is good to keep in mind that we're all in this together and that there are multiple chapters. Also, all of the chapters events are filmed, and so if you're interested to know what was happening in Kansas City, you can always log onto the Creative Mornings website and watch that talk. So the talk that Ben and Amanda are going to give today will go on our website. If you miss it or you want to share it, you can always include that as a share. The other thing to mention is field trips. Our field trips type woman, Sarah Kohler, is not here today. She's out sick, but she has probably participated in more of these than anyone I know. So field trips are just a way to take your community into a local space. And so most of these are still virtual, so you can participate in what they're doing in Sao Paulo or in Paris. Like you can walk into someone's creative space virtually. We are not currently offering any of those in Columbia. What I'd really like to do is have those not be virtual, but be in-person events. We're allowed to do those now. So if you know a space or a creative, an artist or a studio or something that would be really interesting to take our folks into, it doesn't have to be a Friday morning. It can be, a Friday evening, a Thursday evening, it can be any day of the week that we want, that we take a field trip to a specific space. So Ben, if you want us to take a tour through Belly Market, we'll do that for you. Or any other space, I'm joking, please don't do that to us. I don't want to invade your space. But if there's a creative space that would be really interesting to take a tour of or to watch a maker in their environment, that would be something very cool. It'd be a smaller group, but these are also virtual. So if you're interested, you can sign up for them. They cover the gamut of if you want to learn how to do social media marketing, there's a field trip for that. So if you want to learn how to make your own beer, there's a workshop for that. So it's kind of diverse in that way. We also, before every gathering, like to read our Creative Mornings manifesto. Mike is not here to do that today, so I am just going to read it for you. I'm not going to read it like Mike Henderson. If you've met Mike Henderson, he gets up and like does this in a Shakespearean monologue. I'm not going to do that today for you. So everyone is creative. A creative life requires bravery and action, honesty and hard work. We're here to support you, celebrate with you, and encourage you to make the things you love. We believe in the power of community. We believe in giving a damn. We believe in face-to-face connections, hearing from others, jazz hands, virtual claps, and virtual snaps. We bring together people who are driven by passion and purpose, confident they will inspire one another and inspire change in neighborhoods and cities around the world. And everyone is welcome. This actually feels very descriptive of our speakers today, of like bringing people together with passion and purpose. I know that both of these folks really care a lot about what they do and how they're contributing to their community, so I'm excited to introduce them to you. Before we do, depth is our theme this month. So depth is a space that denies easy ways of seeing or comprehending. When we shine a light into the deep blue of the ocean, we cannot see much further than the surface. In our age of instant answers, we bristle at this resistance. It's often easier to reduce people, places, and ideas into flattened renderings, rather than grapple with the nuanced, contradictory truths found in their depths. So this month's theme was chosen by our Columbus chapter, by an artist named Brian Christopher Moss. So it's my pleasure to introduce Ben Hamrah and Amanda Elliott as our speakers this morning. I'm a frequent big box eater. They're catering our wedding in a couple of weeks, so I love the food that they produce and I love the energy that they bring to our community. So I'm really excited to introduce you to them. So y'all, if you want to come on up.
Oh, okay, great.
And I've got your videos queued up whenever you're ready to do them.
Cool.
I'm that happy.
You are talking.
Here's the mic. If you have any technical difficulties, just let
Is
me
the
know.
mic directly tied to the video? Is it like, is the mic necessary?
It does help with video, so we can hear
Okay.
you when it's being recorded.
Because I haven't really
Okay.
Hello, everyone. My name's Ben. This is Amanda. We're business partners, co-conspirators, I believe is what your bio said. We are not necessarily used to doing something like this. We spend our lives in the kitchen and in restaurants and in really pretty venues like Mount Nebo, doing stuff like that. So standing in front of people and speaking, especially speaking about what we do and how it ties to certain themes, is very outside of our box. But when Lindsay approached us and asked us, if we'd be interested in doing something like this, and then we got to look at all of the subjects, I think depth definitely jumped out to both of us, because I think that depth is something that we consider a lot in our day-to-day design, from how we procure food, how we execute the food, how we do service, how we try to cultivate an experience for people. I think that it all falls really in line, especially the way that you described that, to see something when you shine a light and you can only see surface deep, but to know that there is depth below it, I think is something that's very interesting, and something that fits along with what it is that we're trying to do. So I think it's pertinent to give you a little background of Amanda and I's how we came together. I've worked the majority of my life for my father. Anybody that's familiar with Peachtree Catering, it's been around for quite a while, about 26 years now. I'm 39, so I haven't said that out loud.
You're not 40.
No, I know, but 39 feels so much more gross. Like 40, I feel like I'd be fine with. Saying 39, I just feel like I'm lying. So 26 years Peachtree's been around. My father has been in the food industry for the entirety of my life, and it's pretty much all I've known. I tell people that I was quite literally born into the restaurant business. My parents ran a catering company out of their house, quasi-legal catering company out of their house when I was born, and I spent my whole life in kitchens. and in front of house, sitting at a bar and bugging people and running into people and doing stuff like that. And I just kind of fell into it. And so I went to school, and that didn't work out. I didn't like it very much, and it definitely didn't love me. So I ended up going to culinary school in Chicago, and decided that I wanted to do the whole New York Anthony Bourdain life. I, like many other people, read Kitchen Confidential and was like, that's me, minus a lot of the drugs, but not all of them.
I was like,
A little bit. And so yeah, I was gonna make that whole journey. Columbia wasn't, Columbia was home, and it has always been a great town, always been a fun town, but it wasn't really that exciting where food is concerned. And this would have been 2003 maybe. And so I wanted to go somewhere that was doing fun things. And I did this whole thing where I got out of school at midnight, or got out of work at midnight, drove all the way home, knocked on my dad's door. I'm not coming home, I'm moving to New York, I'm gonna do the thing. And he's like, cool, why are you here? And then I decided really quickly, I have a blended family. My parents are divorced and both remarried and had kids. And so I have 3 siblings that are all half siblings, and they're all young. The oldest of them is 24 now. So at that time they were all in school, and I decided I couldn't be away. So I came back to Columbia just specifically to see them through school, and then I was gonna go do the thing. And so I took on more at Peachtree, and I started working more there, and tried to see what kind of impact we could make with food. Most people were doing very standard things, lots of chicken marsala, lots of roast beef, lots of gravy, those kind of things. And there was some fun stuff going on at the Columbia Farmers Market with some of the local farmers, and so we were trying to figure out ways to incorporate that. We tried, doing a separate menu that was like a local menu. Nobody got into it. Nobody was down for it because there was a price attached to it. If you look at one menu and you see $15, and you look at another menu and you see 20, you pick the $15 menu most times. This is how people did things. And so it was kind of a rough go, and there wasn't a whole lot going on. And so somewhere along the line, we decided to get rid of our menus and stop giving people a choice. And so we got rid of all menus, and instead what we did is when people would come to us, we'd say, what are you looking for? Like what kind of event are you having? What do you want to do? What are you expecting? How much do you love food? And we would kind of customize menus around that. And what that allowed us to do was to incorporate some more local produce, some more fun ingredients, give us a chance to do things that weren't gravy based. And yeah, and kind of move forward from there, right? And so this is where if I'm trying this whole time to associate this with depth, right? If we're looking at food from a surface level position, I give you food, you eat it, right? It seems very simple. Like us as cooks, we feel like we cook food, we give it to people, people eat it. It's a very simple thing. There's nothing profound or deep or complex about that. But I think the more that things started to pick up, and the more that people started to enjoy what was going on, and the more that we at Peachtree started to see an opportunity for things to happen, we started to see that there was more depth to this, right? And so then in comes this news that, because we were doing stuff all over the place, different venues. We had a venue as well, but one of the venues we used to do stuff at was this place called Bluebell Farm in Fayette. I'm sure some of you are familiar with it. And we get news that there's a new cook in town. Somebody from New York, somebody with some chops, and Bluebell has a very high standard of execution, and so I was interested in that, and we did an event out there, and the new cook was not there, but this new cook's food was hanging out in the cooler, and it was very clearly someone who knew what they were doing and also came from a culinary background. It was in deli containers, it was blue taped, it was labeled, it was very pretty, it was all kinds of different colors, and I did what I do, and I started snooping, and I pulled her whole bucket out of prep that she had clearly done, and I just started eating stuff. And it was kind of one of those aha moments where I tasted this food, and this person clearly has passion for food, but also clearly has this like palate that I just not experienced. And that was Amanda. And I think I sent her a message and said, like, hey, dug into your food. Sorry. It was, but it was really, it was really fantastic, and just like something like that. And one thing led to another. She was in an off season out there at Bluebell and hit us up to see if she could come, hang out with us and cook for a while during the off season. And I think we ended up bonding from the beginning over a love for food and a hope for something more for food. I can't speak too much for what you were at that point looking for, but
A job.
yeah. For me, I was looking for hope. Like we're in this town, and I love this town, and I love my family, and I want to be around my family, and I want to do things. I want to do things that allow me to be around them. And not only that, but I think we both had this feeling that, so she came from New York. She came from here, went to New York, came back. But I think after going to a place like that, my culinary school was in Chicago, and so we both had this, semi-long-term experience of how big cities approach food, and how people perceive food in big cities. I think that there's this common perception that big cities have really great food and really great chefs, and small towns have really great barbecue. Right? And that's just kind of the consideration. It's like, we're in Columbia. If you want a good meal, you've got CC City Broiler. And if you want a great meal, St. Louis is not too far down the road, nor is Kansas City, right? And I think that both of us felt like that doesn't, I don't understand why that's true, we both cooked at great places in big cities. Just because we moved from those big cities to a small town does not mean that somehow we lost our powers, and lost our knowledge. And so I think that's where our road began together, was over this common understanding that there is more. And so we interject anytime you want. I'll just keep talking.
I mean, it's actually my preference. So,
Yeah, I know it is. Amanda loves public speaking.
For the reference, I'm like very bad at public speaking, and I always cry, hence why he brought up life tissues. 95% of the reason why I let him do the talking is so that I don't get emotional. My fictional character is Amelie, because
Okay.
see, it's already happening. So
It's like my favorite thing. Literally anytime that she's speaking, it gets to this. It's passion,
I
right?
understand.
It's depth,
I
Amanda.
understand.
So we start together. She eventually comes on full time with us and becomes the first chef that Peachtree had for a very long time. Quick side note, that word's weird for me. I don't like it. I don't like chef. I appreciate it and I respect it. And it's probably because I came from a place of authority where you had to say it. And if you look at my school history, I don't like authority. And so it's a weird thing. It's also, we turn it, it's like a lot of things. We think it's a really fun word, and so we turn it into something that it's really not. Chef is just leader, chief. The president is called a chef. The principal of the school is called a chef. That whole thing. But I'm a cook. I like to cook, regardless of what I do these days, which is very little cooking. I consider myself to be a cook. But so anyway, first chef that we had, and I think we both decided that we're gonna try and make our future, and help be a part of the change that's happening in town. Because at this point, there's lots of people that are doing this. We all stand on the shoulders where food is concerned in this town of the Michael Debs and the Craig Sears, and the people who started this farm to table thing in a small town. And nowadays you've got there's people all over the town that are doing really cool things with food. But from a catering aspect, there's nobody else that was spending time trying to decide where the best food could be sourced from, and how much of it could be done locally. And so that kind of started our path, and we started working with farmers, meeting with them on a yearly basis, and figure out what they could grow for us. Not just tomatoes, cucumbers, and squash, but what else can they grow for us? You know, that's fun and different and exciting. And so slowly we start to evolve Peachtree from what was long considered to be the economical choice in catering, and you know, that's a very political way of saying we're the cheap ones. But from a place like that to a place that's considered to be of a higher echelon. It's something that people could look to as, you know, kind of like a face for people who care about food. You know, we're not just here to feed large groups of people, even though that's what we do on a daily basis. We're trying to do it in an ethical way, in a fun way, in a you know, locally sourced way, and so that got to be really fun for us. You know, not having menus, we get to put as much local produce and locally sourced ingredients into these foods, and nobody knows, nobody's the wiser. We have a price point we know that people have to meet, and so we get to play around with those sort of things, and so that's where the complexity started to build for us, and we got to start to weave in all of these fun things into what it is that we were doing. While we're doing that, we are noticing that there's a lot of people who are doing these styled shoots, right? So anybody that's seen anything from anybody within the event industry has seen these styled shoots where there's a really beautiful table and there's a really beautiful plate and there's a fork and a knife and a spoon perfectly set, and there's some really great angles and all this stuff, right? And it looks great, but there's like one glaring thing that was missing for us, and that's people and food. You know, you've got all these great pictures, but there's no people in it, and there's no food in it. And so it's like, yeah, you can make a table look great, but we're right back to the same thing of what's gonna go on that plate, probably beef and gravy. And the other big thing with those style shoots is that it's mutually beneficial for all the people involved. And so how that works is you find a photographer, you find a rental company, you find an event planner, they all get together and they all offer their services, you know, for free, in the hopes that everybody gets some content that they can use to promote their business. And we didn't really see a good opportunity for us to get involved in those things because nobody was looking for that food aspect, and so we decided we were going to do it ourselves. And
I also want to interject that like what I was seeing a lot of, or a lot of like what I think about as far as catering is concerned, and also in the restaurant aspect, is that the things that leave the most amount of imprint for me has always been food, music, creating that environment, and like there was more attention putting onto these like tablescapes and pictures and whatever, and and it's the first thing to like be cut from a budget is like the food or the music, and it's the number one thing that's gonna help like create the memory. So I find that's like that's super interesting to me, of trying to understand that why, and then that's when we wanted to try to do our own thing to flip the script and showcase the food more than anything else.
Add some depth.
I feel like I'm gonna just keep saying the word, but I'm sticking right on topic. So we, A1 Rentals here in town, they're good friends of ours, they're great people. We reached out to them and said, hey, are you hungry? We'll make you dinner if you'll give us some pretty things to serve the dinner on. And so they gave us some stuff, they let us choose whatever it is that we want to choose. We had a patio at the old building of Peachtree. We set the patio up, made it look really pretty. We had a photographer lined up. The photographer backs out on us last minute, and that's the whole point of what we're doing. Through a mutual friend, we found this guy named Drew Peaster. If any of you know Drew, he is just like an incredible photographer. He's a great guy. He's got an eye for food that is just really, really interesting. I think he spent a long time doing crime scene photography. So he knows how to pull light out of spaces that don't normally have a lot of light, and that's really huge for food. Because most food you see it's on plates, there's a lot of glare, there's not typically a lot of light, and there's a lot of nuance in the food. There's a lot of depth in the food. And so Drew was a cool guy for us to meet up with. And so we sit down, we have this big meal, we sit down and eat with them, take some cool shots, and we found that it was a really great time, and realized that there might be something to this, and maybe there's a way that we can market ourselves that's not in the traditional way that most caterers have done, which is like a full page ad in Savor magazine or something like that, you know. But maybe there's something that we can do that's beneficial for us and is beneficial for food in general in a way that we can kind of convey our message. And somewhere in there, as we're thinking about this, comes what you were just talking about, and that's this energy and this feeling that you get from a food experience that's it's just kind of incomparable to other things. And I think that if you can take food that's great and it's sourced in a good way, and it's provided by people in a community that you love and believe in, and that you can help promote, and then you add on top of it the ability to add this experience and this energy to an event, that it becomes something different and it becomes something more. And that's where our idea for Sunday Supper came from. And so we did a series of these dinners called Sunday Supper. That was all from your experience that you can talk about anytime you want.
I think that the thing that I noticed most whenever I moved back, like I was born in Columbia. My parents had a farm outside of Boonville the first 10 years of my life. My mom, see, I can't talk.
Yes, you can. You got this. You got tissues. You'll be good. Just let it out. Let it out.
There's subjects, my mother and food are just things that I have to go past, because that's stuff I get emotional about. In any case, I moved to New York. I worked at an art gallery. My first job outside of college was at the Dahl Museum whenever it first opened in Sedalia, because I had a thing with the director's son, and he's actually the reason I moved to New York, and then he kicked me out of the apartment, and then I went to culinary school, and that's a short synopsis. And then I got married, and I got divorced, and then I got sent back here. So I've had lots of relationship situations that have led me back to this path here. But the thing that I loved so much about New York and its restaurant scene was there wasn't any other choice because space was so limited. So most restaurants are extremely intimate. And so I loved that energy that you have no choice but to sit so close to somebody, and it creates this it's hard for me to describe, but it's something that I knew that I wanted to have emulated here in different, whatever we did, whether we were doing whatever environment we were going into, Sunday suppers with beatbox. It was definitely a huge factor, and then COVID hit, and that's a whole other thing. But it was something that I wasn't seeing a lot in the Midwest. Even in Chicago, I'd go and it'd be everything is so bright and it's spread out, and I wanted to do something completely opposite of that, because I think that there's something that we get from one another, whether we intend it or not, whether you're actually talking to them or not, just by that energy exchange. And it's definitely something that is in consideration with every project that we take on. But with Sunday Supper, it was about, what if we just pick a random space? What kind of dinner does that look like? Just based off of the spaces that we were choosing. So I don't know. You can take over.
Yeah, I mean, it was really the inspiration for everything that we've done since, because it was trying to consider we were trying to look at food and the food experience from from a far step back, instead of just thinking about the day to day, how do we make really good French fries, how do we make a really good burger. It's taking a number of steps back and trying to look deeper into everything and see how I'm sorry, how can we achieve this overall experience? Because for us, I think the first one was definitely an inspiration, but the second and third and fourth iterations of what we were doing were really the biggest inspiration behind all of it, because you get these events, and yes, the food is amazing, and yes, everything looks beautiful, but it's this energy that you get in the room when all of those things meet up together and create this overall experience that was really surreal. It was something that I hadn't experienced before, and I think it was something that was it was one of those moments where you're this is what I want, and then it happens.
There's I feel there's 2 or 3 times that I can just think of on the Sunday supper tip of there's some lunches at Beatbox when it's completely full and chaotic. I get that sensation. the one we did in the greenhouse,
Mhm.
whenever, cause it was like smoke filled and like people, were like sitting together, I was like, this is it, like when it happens, I can like pinpoint it and be like, that's the moment.
Mhm.
Maybe the one in the Peachtree Hallway too was.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
But it's always just that, what were my notes on this? It's like, I'm always like trying to, get at like that experience or that dopamine effect that I get from, that energy or that space.
Mhm.
And it comes with the food too, cause then the food tastes that much better.
Mhm.
Weed helps too, you know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah.
So,
Definitely does.
like, I also think that everything in moderation, so it's not like something I wanna have happen like every day, because then I don't know if I would feel, as special about it, or maybe it would, I don't know, like, I just haven't had the opportunity to see it every day. I just know that when it happens, I feel it and it feels right and I get really excited about it.
And I think all of you probably know what that moment is like, whether it's in your specific, field or it's something completely outside of work. But it's like being a terrible golfer and you hit that perfect shot one time. That's it. That's what I'm chasing the rest of the time. You being a terrible fisherman, but you hook a fish. Like that's you feel that moment, and that's the thing that you're driving for at all times. And so I think that's like the inspiration for a lot of what it is that we've done. We got a video that might help kind of, if none of you are familiar with what we're talking about with these dinners. Past speakers that were here were Carl Bussin and Rebecca Allen.
Yes.
Good friends, amazing photographers, videographers. They have been a really awesome part of some of the Sunday suppers that we've done. And Carl took a couple videos of a couple Sunday suppers, so we'll play one for you. So there's a good example. There's one more, I think. That particular supper was at Centennial Park in the Arcade District, and that was a dinner and a movie. And so that park out there, we basically set up seats on the ground, hammered tables into the grass, and had these like inflatable backrests so that everybody could kind of lounge and watch a movie. We watched Pulp Fiction. And did the food along with Pulp Fiction. The most, I think, interesting part of that, that's a great still shot. I think the most interesting part of that one was that when the guests arrived, their table was set with a glass mirror, a razor blade, and a interesting pile of white substance. It happened to be salt. And the first course was oysters, and so we had everyone, all of the guests that night, move their salt into piles so that the oysters could be rested on them, and we learned a lot about people as to the shape of their piles. If they were in lines, they had a really interesting childhood.
Childhood.
Not childhood. Teens, 20s, 30s, 40s, whatever. Which one is this? Was this the...
I think this is a good one of talking about like I think that spaces aren't always the way that like we want them to like be. So like and at this point it's like, well, what space are we gonna do? Well, we already did something there, and like we knew that space, which was what's the address of that? It's like right across from the Blue Note. I don't know what it used to be.
It's right across from the Blue Note. Yeah, it was like a t-shirt shop or something before us. It was Alan's Flowers, I think.
Maybe. Yeah.
Or My Secret
No,
Garden.
My Secret Garden.
My Secret Garden before that.
Yeah. And I think that we walked into this space and it was like, well, I mean, how are we gonna like cover this up? This bright blue wall. There was like some sort
Blue
of
wall. There was green turf. Yeah.
Yeah, and like the black and white. And I said, you know, like I think that we just have to like lean hard. Like you can either try to cover something up or you can like really lean hard into like whatever kind of vibe that it's like giving you. And I was like, this feels very like Dada surrealist kind of. With the color schematics, and I had remembered that there was at one of the biennales, like there was an artist that had done these like clouds that like suspended. Leanne is always so great to like kind of run with these ideas, and so she made these giant like clouds that hung, and they were all different types. They were cirrus and cumulus, and it had this weird little nook in that space too, and we hung a cloud like so that, you know, and put a chair in there so like people who were at the dinner could go in there and like take a seat and like take pictures, and it looked like their heads were in the clouds. I actually really like that one. Like,
I think the energy wasn't what you were looking for.
No,
but
yeah.
I like the aesthetic of that.
Yeah, I love the aesthetic. It was just like a little dead. Yeah.
Which is interesting for us, you know, like there've been just like anything that I think anyone does, there are hits and misses. And while I think that we've had every supper that we did, guests enjoyed themselves and had a good time. It was more constructive from our side.
Yeah.
You know, it's that search and that search for that experience and that energy in a room that is that's really interesting. It kind of like possesses you once you've had it, you know. So Sunday suppers. I think the only other important thing about those was the fact that a big aspect of it was that the guests we sold everything through email. So we developed this email list, which really started as another non-traditional marketing form for Peachtree. Was how do we get an attentive audience so that we can push events that we're doing and also try and bring people in without spending thousands and thousands of dollars on magazine ad. And no offense to anyone that does magazine ads, I love them. It's just like most small businesses, it's very hard for us to use that. It's like a cost prohibitive barrier for us. And so this email list was great. We'd sell all these things through email with only the date as the marketing point. We're doing a dinner, this is the date. You don't know the place, you don't know the time, you don't know the food, you know nothing. It's just, you know, this is it. And it was hard from the start. You know, we're selling 20 or 30 seats, and it was, you know, we had to really push it. But then it got to this point where we're selling 100 seats in 30 minutes. We send out an email and boom, it's sold out like that, you know, and we're selling this based just specifically on the fact that we're having an event. And that's so different for anything that we'd experienced as caterers before, or as, you know, as food people, I think. And I think the most fun about that was that no one ever knew the menu. No one ever knew what kind of food that they were going to eat until they sat down and the food was placed in front of them. Most notably, we fed people ants. Culinary ants. We didn't just go outside and forage for them. But Amanda found this really cool place that harvests culinary ants. It's very traditional in other cultures, and for that one in particular, it fell in line with what it was that we were trying to do. But I think for me, what was most exciting was watching people enjoy this meal, having no idea what they'd done, and knowing full well that likely every single one of them would not have eaten it had they known, right? It is traditional in other cultures. It is normal. It is a good source of protein, and it's not weird. It's just different for us. And I think the idea of preconceived notions where food is involved is really interesting because you know, if you've had oysters, right, and you had oysters that were either old or prepared incorrectly, you may never eat oysters again, and that's all because of one person's poor job at showing you something that a lot of people love. And so the ability to remove all of that from people's minds when we're feeding our food is really interesting, especially from a culinary standpoint, because then we really get to do what we want. So for that dinner specifically, we're feeding these people this meal. We did it in this really cool place where they didn't allow shoes, and so I'm barefoot serving people food. And
That's like your dream home grill.
I mean, it really is. if I never had to wear shoes again, I would. And so at the end of this meal, we had gotten into like giving people to take home stuff. At the end of this meal, we give them a take home pastry, and attached to the bag is a little pin that says "I ate a bug." Just before that, we had taken this poll: what was your favorite dish? And their favorite dish was corn. Was the corn dish, right? Let me see. That's not even English. I think that this will pull up. But either way, they said that their favorite dish was corn, and this is actually the venue that we did it at. Everybody said their favorite dish was corn, right? They get this pin, says "I ate a bug," and we tell them all over that corn are ants, and everybody has this moment like, ugh, you know? But then it was cool, and like my dad specifically, he was there that night. He would never have eaten bugs, ever. But now that he had done it, it was forced upon him. It was like his favorite thing to bring people into the kitchen after that and like show them the ants and try to get them to taste it. So yeah, so you know, long story short about that, that was kind of like our continuation of this search for more. You know, we cook food, we're cooks. There's nothing deep or profound about that, but there can be. And that's where Beatbox came from. You know, Beatbox started out as an idea, just a way for us to kind of compete with box lunches that were going around town. We're caterers, we do a ton of box lunches. All the box lunches are like bread, meat, bread, cool, and a cookie and a bag of chips. And yeah, meat and cheese. And I'm stuck on that name, by the way. And so we were like, you know, Beatbox. We were trying to think of names. I was inebriated one night, and it kind of like hit me. It was like, oh, Beatbox, like, you know, Beatbox. We're from the age where you know, hip hop was blaring and beatboxes, and people beatbox with their mouths. It's also kind of like funny because it's boxy, and that fits in line with what we're doing. And we cut a beat in half, like a real beat in half, stamped a piece of paper, and a graphic designer friend of ours made the logo for Beatbox, and that's where that came from. And then all of a sudden, we're trying to evolve Peachtree into its, you know, and even farther into, you know, changing people's opinion and perspective on it. And we decided to get rid of the venue, and we found the place where Beatbox is right now, moved both places under the same roof, and everything's going to work together, and we can source larger amounts of produce from these local vendors, larger amounts of meats. We can expand our, you know, financial footprint on our community, and so that's where you know, Beatbox started. Again, with this drive for a certain aesthetic, a certain energy that the people would feel, a certain vibe, and you know, obviously COVID was an interesting speed bump in the middle of all that, because we opened Beatbox November 19th of 2019, and if you're doing the math, that's like 3 months before everything went weird. And so then we were lucky compared to a lot of other people, because Beatbox was already designed to be quick serve. So it wasn't much of a shift for us. We didn't really have to pivot all that much. We did have to get rid of the dinners, which was definitely a sad thing, because we were going after that certain energy and that certain experience for those. And that may be back as the neighborhood continues to expand, but now we're happy with our afternoons. But that moves into everything else that we do moving forward. I think that what started as me pulling a bucket out of a refrigerator and tasting some food and having this moment where like, that's what food is supposed to taste like, to meeting someone who's like the perfect complement to who I consider myself to be and what I want to be in life, and like where I want to make my mark, to what do we want food to be, and what do we want people to think about food when they think about food, not only in a small town, but just like that overall food experience. And how do we want people to look at us, look at the projects that we do, and you know, how do we want all of these experiences to be? And we're trying to, we just recently purchased Haas's Market in July, and we're in the process of renovating it and overhauling some things and kind of changing that as a slightly different concept. I think that's really interesting because you've got 20 years worth of one perspective on how a market, how a market is done, and now we have our opportunity to kind of instill what we feel is our perspective on how what a market looks like and what it is that we can do. And I think for all projects moving forward, there's a certain amount of depth that we want to that we want to consider when we're approaching these things. I think that we are cooks, and it is a very simple thing to just make the cold food hot and put it into people's mouths. But there's a lot more to it, and it's become like the coolest thing that I've ever been able to do, to be able to work side by side with my buddy and search for this experience.
Ditto.
Yeah, hopefully that was helpful or informative and gave you an idea of what it is that we're doing, and I hope you all enjoy what it is that we do.
To be able to ask some questions.
Sure, yeah.
I have like a Kickstarter question. It's, have you seen The Bear? Is this accurate?
Have you watched it yet?
Yes.
I'm mostly asking.
You answer first. Go ahead.
So, not that I think that you're the same, but it's so, that show's so fascinating because it feels like the same thing that you're saying about, like, how do we look at food and how do we like bring people in and utilize what they're bringing to the table, and just, I don't know, that show gives me so much anxiety.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's also like,
I think it's over dramatized. But I will also give you the scope of like, I never chose to work in a kitchen where someone yelled, or they definitely existed. I worked at, Kraft, Tom Colicchio's place, and like, I can remember the first day that I was in there, I had other girls like shoving me, and I'm not into that. So like, I ended up choosing different restaurants that I felt were an environment that I wanted to be in, and that was like, chefs that didn't yell, that could articulate themselves and their ideas without. I understand that it happens from time to time because like our emotions are our emotions. What?
Even.
You are the worst. But I feel like that show. I feel like you have personal ties to it that like probably hit your emotional, but I think it's way over dramatized. I'm like,
I agree completely.
Get out.
Yeah, I agree completely. It's very over dramatized, I think. But I think just like anybody, there are things that you can pull from it. Like just like I think another reason that we mesh so well is that I did an internship in France at like a Michelin-starred restaurant, which is supposed to be something. And the second day I worked there, I got yelled at because I didn't shake the chef's hand. I said hello, but I didn't shake his hand and look him directly in the eye. And that was just like a moment for me of, who cares? Like I said hello. I'm here working. I'm doing the things. I've only known you for 2 days, so like I don't, like respect being forced versus respect being earned are very different things. And I think that both of us had similar experiences to kitchens like what they flash in The Bear of 11 Madison Park, of him getting screamed at and told that he's nothing and worthless and all of these things. And for us, it's one of the biggest driving forces behind every project that we do moving forward. It's why we pay employees decent wages, and we do equal tip shares, and we try not to work anybody longer than 40 hours, and those sorts of things. And we try to run a kitchen, our kitchens, in ways where it's respectful and it's not like an authoritarian hierarchy. We don't have positions and things like that. It's because when there's respect and freedom, we feel like we can achieve the same sort of product. It's a fun show. It is.
Yeah.
It's and there's a lot of it. Like there's that moment where he's telling all of the people in the kitchen that he worked for when he was younger, or that he couldn't work for, but he had been it when he was younger, that they're doing everything wrong. And I remember vividly coming home from culinary school the first time and telling my dad and our kitchen manager at the time, like, you're cutting wrong. Like the typical, I just came from culinary school and I know everything about food. There's there's always that.
You didn't have any depth yet.
What's that?
You didn't have any depth yet.
Yeah, no depth yet. Yeah, but good show, and I like him. I watch Shameless. I think it's cool. I like I feel like I've never liked Matty Matheson more than in that show, because I don't like him as
I
a
like
TV
him as kind of a
personality.
side character.
Yeah.
I read Marcus Samuelson's book, Yes Chef, and it's a lot of like what you're talking about, is like the type of environment. I went to Red Rooster on my 30th birthday, and like he was there, and I was watching like how this kitchen people were interacting. It's a lot of what you're saying, like setting up that type of space for chef culture. So fascinating to me because it does feel like it doesn't have to be like the bear, but
Right.
you can create spaces that are really inclusive.
Right.
without-
That's the idea for Beatbox, right? It's like, we don't have servers, we don't have any hierarchy, everybody's on the same level, everybody gets paid relatively similar. The music is incredibly loud because that's what it's like in the kitchens. And normally there's this hard separation between kitchen and dining. And so in the kitchen it's this loud, rowdy, crazy space. And then you walk through this door and it's very proper. Take your plate, please. And so like breaking those boundaries for us was really important. I just think it's a.
Well, I also don't foresee us ever doing like something like fine dining.
Yeah.
Like it's just not anything that I've ever, like, I like food. I think I'm always disappointed in fine dining because I feel like that I'm always paying a ton of money and I'm like expecting it to be mind blowing, and I've never had that from a fine dining experience. The places that might get most like mind blown is like street food, or like someplace that's like very unassuming, and so I don't really want to create that space. Also, I mean, I like going to it sometimes, but not really.
The only fine dining experience that I ever had that I really truly enjoyed was when the chef came out between the 5th and 6th course and he set a bong on the table and was like, enjoy yourself. Heavy metal playing in the background. There were only 16 people in the restaurant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be cool.
Exactly. Yeah. Anybody else? Questions?
Oh, are Sunday suppers back, and where can I sign up?
Nope.
No, so we tried to, they grew, right? So 20 people, 30 people, 40 people, 100 people, 150 people, and then they kind of came back down, and then COVID hit, we didn't do them for a long time, and then when things got a little bit more easy, we started doing them again. That's where 2 of these videos came from. But I think you, more than anybody, realize that they're not fun if they're big, right? They're only fun if they're small. They're not profitable if they're small. So there's this, paradox of if we do them big, we make money. If we do them small, we make no money. If we do them small, we have a great time. If we do them big, it's okay. And so we'll likely do something again, but right now things are just so busy and we have so much going on that we can't really dedicate time to doing something like that.
Were the ants alive when you got them?
No, they come like cured in a jar.
They're nutty and like sweet and citrusy. I mean, really good.
You're gonna tell me they're in the fries now, aren't you?
There's got to be some kind of legality about on a daily basis feeding people with something they don't know about. What's up?
I absolutely love your social media. Can you talk about like what inspires you to make it? Or if it's just like
Are you talking about the dancing videos?
all
Or are you
of
talking
them,
about
all of them, like the food, the people, the atmosphere.
I can touch on part, and I think you can touch on a whole lot more. But social media for me and for us from the beginning is a continuation of why we did Sunday Supper. It's like we're a small business and we're food based, which means we have a very small profit margin, and so we don't have money to spend on marketing. We just don't. And social media is free, and it only costs us our time. And so approaching something like that and trying to get it to a point where it's very direct and very, you have an attentive audience where we can post something and 20 minutes later people will walk in the door and buy it. That's gold for us. And so that was, for me, that's where the inspiration for our social media started. But then you bring a creative like her into the fold and everything's possible.
There is no rhyme or reason. It's just like, it honestly is just, I'll have watched something the night before and then come in, or someone will make something, I'll be like, ooh, that's super yummy. Like, I think that I'm a fairly positive person overall, and so I like to be happy and bubbly. And so like, yeah, there was like the idea of doing the shed sessions, so we did those for a little while. I don't know, it's just a brain fart that like, Yeah.
Yeah, it's gone everywhere. There were times where I did it for a while, and and I think I lost privileges for a little while.
I think initially when we started Beatbox, I was like, what was my marketing idea? I'm gonna dance in fields, and it's gonna be.
Yep, and you sure did.
I did for a little while.
And a carrot costume, I did for a little while. Yeah.
But yeah.
So.
Hi. Okay, so I feel like you guys have a pretty evolved sense of yourself and like your brand and what you want, but how did you get there? How did you like actually get to the place of kind of reimagining what food can be in Colombia?
Coffee and drugs.
Short answer.
No, trial and error, you know? I mean, like, I think that, speaking personally, my perspective on food, my perspective on business is constantly evolving, but is most notably shaped by the people I surround myself with, right? So, like, I can't speak enough to, I think, the friendship and the relationship that we have developed over the time that we've been together. I never really saw myself as a person with a partner in business. I work for my dad. My dad, if any of you know him, is a strong personality and does not necessarily work well with others when authority is considered. But authority stuff aside, because I don't feel like we have to like inflict authority on a lot of times, but like business, food, projects like new restaurants and new things like that, to have a person that complements who you are but also contradicts who you are, I think has been really forming for us. I think we both like glean inspiration from different places. I don't spend a lot of time looking at like what else is going on in the world. I read a lot of books. I look at a lot of old cookbooks and things like that and trying to figure out where that's coming from. I have this ongoing thing in my life where I'm Persian, I'm American. How do those things work themselves out moving forward? That kind of thing.
Ben's a lot like my dad. He like says no almost immediately to anything that I say.
Almost immediately.
Yeah. But I know that like 2 minutes later he's gonna like come around and be like, well. So like, I feel like I know your personality pretty well, maybe. And I feel like my depth. Has been actually like growth in knowing like because I have, as I've said, like other types of partnerships that were unsuccessful. So I think that in this in our like friendship, in our business relationship, I think that I'm trying to utilize the things that mistakes that I've made before, and so and I think that works to our benefit whenever we're creating different brands or different ideas, and I don't know. I don't have anything else really. I don't know what you're putting up.
I was just pulling up the picture.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Steven, you got a question?
I just want to interject with the importance of what you're doing in mid-Missouri. I'd argue that your food is better than St. Louis, and I don't think there's great food in St. Louis. I think there's great food in New York City. If we talk in the United States, maybe San Francisco, because great food is coming from the depth of what you're bringing out of that food. It's not mass-produced. And we know that mass-produced food doesn't have the nutrients or the flavor from the earth to give you that depth of what you're doing. What I love about what you're doing is you take people from my office that grew up in Hannibal or Chillicothe or somewhere like that, right? And they come to University of Missouri, and the University of Missouri has actually saved me, opened my mind to what's possible in the world. And then they try your food down the street. They're like, I would never try that or even imagine that was great food. And so what you're doing, I just wanted to say, is awesome because it's very European about how they approach food. I mean, hell, even McDonald's in Europe has to approach food more locally than we do here in the United States, right? We're mass processed, craft food, sodium based, that tricks your tongue into thinking that that's flavorful when the food really has the flavor. So I think about depth in you guys on how you got to where you are, the depth that brought you there, plus the depth of, I think people need to appreciate of the food, where it was grown, the sun that it was hit. I mean, bringing that realization to the coolness of the day it was harvested on changes the aspect of the food.
I think that's one of the coolest things is knowing that, you know, like you may eat a shawarma one day and the stuff that's in it was literally in the ground 2 days ago. You know, and Paul Weber, the silky gold sounds of Paul Weber, is picking it out of the ground, washing it carefully, bringing it to us. It gets put into a wrap and then it goes into your mouth. I mean, that's, you know, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just gonna ask about, I didn't know if you guys were gonna touch on or talk about Belly Market and what that, I don't know much about that at all. And what's next?
Yeah, I think we're still learning what Belly Market is going to be. I think with every project you have an idea of what something's going to be, and then you get on site and you start to get this like real empirical data, and you're like, well, now what's it going to be? You know, the idea is to continue anything that we do. I think the two biggest things that we approach them from is how can we expand the amount of money that we spend locally, because you know, like if we spend $650,000 a year on food, right? If we can, the more of that $650,000 that we can keep within 50 miles of Columbia, the more that money just literally stays here, you know, and just festers and builds and grows and does all the things. And so with anything that we do, that's one of the core principles. And it's also like, how do we expand our family, you know, like our crew of people that aren't getting paid minimum wage, that aren't getting yelled at and having to work all these crazy things, and like how can we build this group of people that are happy and can like maybe pay their bills and also stay in the restaurant industry. And so like those are the two things that we kind of approach things with, but then it's all the rest of the aesthetic and the energy and what you're trying to feel. I think with the market, it's a cool concept because you've got hot food that changes all the time. The people who come in and be like, I want that, you put it in a box or you put it on a plate and give it to them, and it's just like immediate, instead of like a restaurant where you go and you order it and you wait for it and then it comes. And you know, that ability to continue to serve people quickly and ethically, I think is like the inspiration behind it, but we're still kind of figuring out what it is. Yeah.
I mean, I think about it as like, what would I go in and want to like take home for dinner, or like, you know, what's like, what did I tell you in those notes? I eat cereal a lot for dinner, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna lie, like I eat like a toddler. But
she really does.
I do.
Fueled on potato chips and cereal.
Yeah, it's true. But you know, the real concept, or like, also I think for me the biggest thing that I'm learning from like our growth is like how to inspire the people that are cooking or that are like, you know, helping flush out our vision for us. How to keep them inspired, or how to teach them, like, look, I want you to make something that you would make for yourself. This isn't about just like putting food out there. And I think that that's like the biggest obstacle that I've like, you know, found along the way is like getting people to feel as inspired by it as I feel, you know, to be able to kind of continue that vision. And with the, you know, with the market, hopefully we'll be able to do that, but in a very straightforward, like the most delicious turkey sandwich you've ever had kind of way, or mind-blowing cob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have time for one more question, so and we're just right over time. I want to make sure to honor this space's time.
3-part question. Do you guys take a day off? Do you cook on that day off? If so, what do you cook besides cereal and potato chips?
No days off.
Days off. Yeah. Sometimes to the cooking. And mine is probably very different than yours. You know, like I roast chicken a lot. That's like my favorite thing to cook is just a roast chicken because it's always different. It's always getting better. Sometimes it's getting worse. Yeah, very very simple things. I very rarely like go hard at home. But I don't like that one video of me like cooking during COVID. That's just like proof that I actually do cook because I don't do a whole lot of cooking anymore. I make soups in the morning at Belly, but I haven't cooked a lot for a while. And when we did Sunday suppers, we traded off. She would cook one and I would run the front, and then I would cook one and she would run the front. So we got to, you know, get an opportunity to do that. But as things continue to grow,
we have kind of like separated our roles into like all things culinary and business. So yeah.
I look forward to Saturdays. My parents have my daughter on Saturdays, and my mom always cooks me dinner. So like that's my favorite day of the week. Because like I don't know what we're having, but I eat everything. So it's just a matter of like someone else cooking for me that I actually really enjoy.
My fridge right now has bottled water, LaCroix, some carrots, and
Lots
a
of
whole chicken.
And lots of chicken.
Lots of chicken.
Well, thank you all so much for just being